Well, yeah, Matt. I mean, what we're talking about with outbound and inbound world. I mean, I love hearing that because I do feel like everyone I talk to is always talking about inbound and how outbound's dead and all the different ways that it's dead.
Yes.
Curious what your perspective is on that, what your POV is, and kind of expand on it.
So I think there are a lot of salespeople who are hoping to build a career sitting patiently at their desk, waiting aggressively for the phone to ring.
Yeah,
And if their sales career goes belly up, they're going to reach out to the marketing department and complain that they got bad leads.
yeah,
And it's amusing to me. You know, I've been doing this. I've been a sales trainer for 23 years. I've been in sales since 1987. It is very rare for the fish to jump in the boat and be the right fish.
yeah. I mean, it's fun when it happens.
Yeah,
Yeah, you just can't expect it. I think there also is like a glorification or like putting people on the pedestal that have like these great inbound moments, and everyone talks about that when like 99.9% of what's happening is not that. And so like
right.
especially earlier stage companies lose track of the idea that no, this is going to be built the way that everything else is built unless you're extremely lucky, but why wait for the fish to jump into your boat, right?
Yeah. Well, and the problem is like even if you have great marketing and it's super targeted and it's exceptionally data driven and it's really well designed, most of the people that respond to your marketing messages aren't your ideal client.
Mm,
Right. So if you have the normal Pareto principle where 80% of the market produces 20% of your revenue,
yeah.
yeah, 80% of the market's not fit to even buy from you.
Hmm.
20% of the market's going to buy from you. Of that 20%, there's realistically 4% is going to generate 80% of your revenue. Of
Yeah.
that 4%, you're going to have about, you know, 1.4% is going to generate 64% of your revenue.
Yeah.
Well, the odds of getting 1.4 out of 100 people to contact you on a regular basis to build predictable pipeline is almost non-existent.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So
you've got to have a strategy to pick the people you want to talk to and then go do it.
So you can convince me with those numbers. What are you doing when you're talking to somebody who's, you're training or you're working with or you're advising and you're trying to shake them out of this whole inbound notion? Like what are your steps to like create that action plan to get them to actually change their behavior?
So the first thing we talk about is what their goals are.
Hmm.
And the second thing we talk about is what's their plan if they fall behind.
Hmm.
Because the reality is, if you've ever read anything about goal setting and planning, there's a book called The 12-Week Year, which is a great book.
That one. Yeah.
Yeah, it basically says you can set an annual goal, but nobody ever works off an annual goal. It's too large a window. You can't focus,
Yeah.
right? So if you want to set effective goals, set an annual goal, and then you have four waypoints during the year.
Hmm.
Every 13th week, you sit down and go, okay, where did I start? Where am I? Where am I trying to get? What do I have to adjust?
Yeah.
And the odds are about 100% that you're going to have to adjust something on a quarterly basis to hit your annually goal,
Yeah.
right?
Totally.
So you're almost always off course on your goal.
Hmm.
Well, the hard part with sitting around and waiting for inbound is when I say to you, okay, assuming that you're off course at the end of Q1 on your annual goal, what are you going to adjust to get back on course?
Hmm.
And if you're 100% inbound and your answer is I'm going to wait more aggressively for the phone to ring, I can guarantee you're not making your number.
Yeah. A funny thing that I keep hearing over and over, and I mean, no shade towards marketing because marketing and sales are on the same team, but you can have a you can have a sales team and a sales org without a marketing team. You cannot have a marketing org without a sales team. Like you have to have that sales team no matter what, and that sales team should be doing things. And obviously, when you're working together, it's always better, but there is a crucial thing, which is what are you doing actually as a seller to actually get that ball moving and everything. Um,
Yeah.
so so you have this, you go, okay, look, here's your annual goal. We'll break it down by quarter. You're not hitting that. Like, are you bringing them back into the cookbook? and like the activities that they should be doing, and then saying this is what we have to do, and then having like the hard conversation of like being like, hey, let's be realistic. You said you were going to make your team, or you were going to make 500 calls this month or each month. You've done 390. That's why you're not hitting the number.
Well, so the annual goal is a lagging indicator of success, right? It's like
Mhm.
staring at the scoreboard and then trying to coach the team at the end of the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't work. So what you've got to be able to do is walk them backwards through the things that have to happen in order for them to hit that lagging indicator.
Hmm.
And that's the conversation. I don't have to tell them that they have to do outbound. I just ask them how they get to the step before the step they're at. And eventually they have to produce leading indicator behavior.
Hmm.
Like they have to do things that start the process, right? If I wanted to lose 200 pounds and my plan was to think deeply about being skinny while laying on the couch eating pizza watching TV, I would never lose 200 pounds,
Yeah.
right? I'd be a fat guy laying on the couch watching TV eating pizza, which doesn't sound terrible, frankly, but doesn't help you lose 200 pounds,
Yeah. It's just
right?
not in alignment with what your goal is.
Yeah, you can't get there from here. So what you've got to start to think about is most salespeople have an annual goal. I
Hmm.
mean, it's just kind of part of the deal. And last year, 2025, 33% of salespeople attained quota,
Jeez.
and
Yeah.
two-thirds did, right? So if you're comfortable, on a crapshoot, that there's a two-thirds chance you'll miss your goal. And when you miss your goal often enough, eventually your boss makes you available to industry.
Hmm.
And then you have to go find a new place to work because, while you were waiting aggressively for the phone to ring, you missed your number.
Hmm.
And they hired somebody new who will wait aggressively for the phone to ring, right? But nobody hires a new guy to wait for the phone to ring. One of my favorite clients, uh, guy that I've worked with for, off and on for 20 some years now,
Hmm.
he said, everybody at our company prospects. Some people prospect to sell our products, and some people prospect for new jobs,
It's a great line. I like that a lot.
right?
So when
And
it comes, oh, sorry.
yeah, and so that's kind of the whole point is you don't really have a choice.
Hmm.
At some point, you're going to pick up the phone. It's just you get to decide whether you're going to pick up the phone to make a commission or get a new job.
Yeah. Yeah. What about if you're working with an org that, let's say the leadership doesn't have that same discipline and like how they're, I agree with the motto of like, are you the prospect or you prospect? Pick one.
Right.
How do you go about the change management of going to an organization that maybe doesn't have the same level of commitment and changing that environment so that we can have the right type of like responsibility, accountability, what people should be doing?
I, every organization has to be able to define and describe and map out their buyer journey,
Hmm.
right? And so there are some buyer journeys that are super simple. It's $9 per person per month. You're buying a seat. How many seats do you want? And it
Right.
can be largely self-serve, right? And we've all individually and corporately purchased things like that.
Yep.
But the reality is that's probably 3% of the market,
Right.
right? There's just not that much that we can buy on a per person, per seat, per month basis that is going to produce enough revenue to keep a company going.
Hmm.
So, Dropbox has an enterprise sales team, right? Right?
Yeah.
All these companies that do the per person price, they all have enterprise sales teams. You know, and what that tells you is that you might be able to describe the problem you're trying to solve,
Hmm.
and you might be able to do an internet search, and you might be an AI enhanced internet search, and you might be able to gather details. But the conversation that you have with a salesperson who is competent
Hmm.
helps the buyer make better decisions,
Yeah.
right? And so there's always going to be room for people to have conversations and learn things they didn't know they needed to know.
Right.
Right. Well, in order to make that as likely to happen as possible, the best thing that a salesperson can do is pick people who have matched either the demographic or behavior characteristics of people who buy from them and call them and say, we're not doing business, but would you like to?
Hmm.
And the more you do that effectively, the more likely your chances are of making a sale.
Yeah. Well, and
And the business owners and leaders that don't have that strong outbound mindset
mhm,
will get it once they realize they can sell their base level deals, but they can't sell the more complex ones.
right. Well, I think I had an interesting experience with that as somebody who is also prospecting, founded my own company, and I'm prospecting every single day. There's no place to hide. Like we're in the
Right.
same boat. Um, and we had done a ton of market research and looked into a vertical and thought this vertical would be great. All of the indicators are there. There's no way they're not doing outbound, so on and so forth. Called like 100 different organizations, had about 25, 30 different conversations, got some responses to my emails. It is like 95% of that industry, all referral inbound based, like stagnant, plateaued out. Nobody is willing to pick up the phone and do anything. I talked to several leaders who complained about the fact that nobody was willing to put any money into the prospecting side and realized that despite all of this market data, the only way I was ever going to find out if this was actually going to be worth pursuing was picking up the phone, having a conversation, and then being able to bring it back in internally and say, like, hey, you know what? This isn't even the right place. But at least I talked to them and found out, let's go somewhere else. So as much as it helps the buyer, it helps the seller too to understand what's actually happening out there when you actually have a real conversation.
Yeah. I mean, for my entire life, I have found myself time after time saying, well, that looked good on paper.
Yeah, yeah,
Right. Prospecting is how you figure out in the startup what actually looks good versus what looks good on paper.
yeah. And it helps with identifying ICP. It helps with messaging. You have a conversation with somebody, you're getting real feedback, real time, and then you go, "Oh, maybe I'll adjust that because they like stared at me blankly when I was talking to them." So I
Yeah.
think it's cool and valuable. They don't. Well, whose
Right.
opinion matters in that conversation?
The only person that's buying.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think that that's, a super powerful part of that prospecting. So like from a perspective of getting people to start this action, like are there like do you have recommendations that are like hard tactical, like do XYZ, just start here and then we'll evolve, or how do you handle like the get that jump started aspect?
So, um, my first job out of college, I worked for Coke USA and I covered parts of 3 states.
Mhm.
And basically, I was handed a phone book filled with account listings with street address and phone number.
Yeah.
And my boss said, we're not really sure how accurate any of this information is, but if you'd like to keep your job, you need to go through this entire book and find out who's really doing business with us.
Hmm.
Right? There was no option behavior. It wasn't like he said, hey, you can sit back and wait, see who calls. We're a pretty big company. People will contact us.
Yeah.
Like it was just no. So to some degree, the most important thing a leader can do is remember that, you know, every company is driven forward by intelligent choices and action,
Hmm.
right? So you've got to be able to make intelligent choices and then you've got to take action. And if you're programming, if you're coding, if you're building a product, if you're whatever you're doing, you've got to make intelligent choices.
Yeah.
Well, sales, which is, you know, half the business because you have sales and overhead, the two departments in every company. Like sales it requires intelligent choices
Yeah.
and action.
Totally.
So, you know, you got to figure out who do I want to talk to and how do I get them to talk to me?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, would it be fair to say, like, hey, if you don't have a prospecting motion, there's no excuse. Just go find a phone book and just start. And then you can start adjusting from there, but you have to get going.
Yeah. So my son is 25, works for a software company as an enterprise BDR, and they've never had an enterprise BDR succeed in his company yet. And he's at 300% of quota because he sat down and said, okay, who do we actually sell to?
Hmm.
And what companies have the same demographic qualifications as those companies?
Yeah.
And he spent 6 months refining his list in the first week and 5 months and 3 weeks calling those people and figuring out whether or not they were even good prospects.
Yeah.
And ironically, he has filled his pipeline enough to make his annual quota.
Yeah. Ironically, are we sure that's the right one?
I mean,
Yeah.
who saw that coming?
Yeah, right. Who would have ever guessed that the person being proactive got some results out
Yeah,
of proactive
that
activity?
that could pick up the phone and call people that look like the people that already pay you
Yeah.
would actually generate people interested in paying you.
Yeah. So with those intelligent choices, obviously there's some experimentation. I know that for Sandler, there's always a question of more, better, different. How does your process look for, kind of walking through that? What does that look like in a practical way?
So I believe that most businesses have existing clients,
Hmm.
right? The reality is most businesses are going to make about 90% of their revenue from their existing clients this year,
Hmm.
if not more, right? An effective SaaS business is going to make about 120% of their current year revenue over the next 12 months from their current clients because they're always looking to expand. Um, in my world, the first thing I do with any of my clients is I stack rank their existing clients,
Hmm.
figure out who produces 80% of their revenue, and then find lookalike audience.
Mm. Yeah.
And then we just start calling and
Yeah.
walking in and visiting.
Yep. That makes sense. So somebody who, let's say, doesn't have those existing clients, and so they're maybe like trying to, fighting a little bit of an uphill battle, trying to figure out
Well,
their
do they?
baby steps.
I would guess if they don't have any existing clients, they've started a company
Yeah.
and they have an idea of what their user looks like,
Hmm.
right? So I had a company that was started that when they became a client of mine, they were relatively new. They were selling conveyor belts to manufacturing facilities in a 5-state area, right?
Hmm.
And they couldn't call on existing clients because it was a new business, but they had an idea that businesses in these industries are going to be buyers.
Hmm.
And I said, well, how many of those are available? How many facilities are in that SIC code that you think you're targeting? And they said, well, there's about 3,000 in the 5 states that we want to cover. I said, good. There's 4 of you. So you can divide the list in 4.
Yeah.
And the one guy said, no, I'm a software guy. I said, okay, there's 3 of you now,
Yeah.
right? You just need to start picking up the phone and asking questions
Hmm.
and figuring out whether or not your theory that this is something people will buy holds water. And if it does, you're great. And if it doesn't, then you got to make another theory.
Yeah. That's great. And then actually do the work, right? Not just
And
rely on the
then you've
market
got
data.
to, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, the reality is, you know, the person least likely to succeed at selling in a repeatable way is the owner or founder who's super excited about the new business they came up with and wants to tell everybody about it,
Yeah.
because then they never really learn because they don't give prospects a chance to say, hey, here's why I'm not interested. Here's what could be different that would interest me. But that's the process. You still have to go call people. You still have to talk to them.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's go back to right, we have our 80%. We figured out the similarities. We're now going to target them intelligently. We can go up or down with like how the quantity, so that's their more. And then as we're doing our messaging, I mean, how are you tracking or saying this messaging could be better, this messaging could be different, or we can outreach different? Like, how are you then getting
A
after
B test,
A/B test?
A/B test the voicemails you leave. The thing about B2B sales calls, 95% of them go to voicemail.
Yeah.
One of the questions I love asking my clients, the salespeople that come in, is show me 3 different versions of your voicemail script.
Hmm.
that you have prepared so that when you get voicemail, 95% of the time, you're not just winging it.
Right.
And there, nobody ever has a voicemail script prepared. Nobody's ever thought about it. They just kind of start talking when the voicemail kicks on, which
Right.
doesn't make any sense.
I mean, yeah, I'm with you 100%. I was trying to think of an excuse for them, and I just couldn't even think of a funny one for it. But
Yeah,
yeah.
there's nothing. I mean, it doesn't. If something happens to you, like I had a guy that was selling, he was selling fiberglass bath inserts in a
Mhm.
house, and it was a great sales call. They were going upstairs. They walked in the master bedroom, and the lady goes, "Oh my God, my cat's having kittens. You need to leave."
Mhm.
And like he hustled out of the house, and he came to training the next week, and he's like, "Well, what do I do in that situation?" And I'm like, "Well, if it happens once, there's nothing you can do about it. It's just an off the wall thing. But if 3 times in 90 days you go into people's houses and you're going upstairs at the end of a great sales call to measure their bathroom, and the homeowner says, 'Oh my God, my cat's having kittens. You need to leave,' right? Then you better have a plan early in your sales process to say, 'Hey, before we get wrapped up in this, is your cat pregnant? Is there like
Yeah.
is there any reason that your kittens would be born this evening and interrupt our sales call?' Right? But voice messages, you get voicemail 95% of the time,
Yeah.
and you better have a plan. And it's even worse now with Apple's live voicemail,
Yeah.
where you can see the voicemail being left, and you get some dope just rambling on with no point. You're not getting picked up. You're probably getting blocked.
Yeah. Well, the other fun one is trying to navigate the phone screening where it says give your name and your purpose, and you're like, how am I possibly going to give my purpose in 2 words? And maybe that's something I need to work on, and that's, like a training issue on my end, but that becomes very like tricky to be able to figure out how do I be concise, how do I navigate these voice screenings. And from my own, A/B testing, I find if I just say my name, it's 10 times better than trying to get anything for my purpose in there to this point. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think you can summarize your purpose unless you're comfortable saying it's a sales call.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Cold calling you. And if they don't feel like talking to a cold calling person, great. Even if you're, the right person for the problem they're facing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think people are a lot more receptive to an honest it's a sales call than to an evasive, the reason I'm calling is to follow up on an inquiry we had from a drop-in card that I got from a magazine. I mean, it
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Oh, I start most of mine with hey, this is a cold call. Feel free to hang up.
Yeah.
This is what I'm calling about. And
Yeah.
it's disarming and it feels good, like personally, just from a selfish perspective, being able to say that feels great. Because then I'm like, now
Yeah.
we're up front.
My favorite start to a cold call is, hey, this is a cold call. You probably hate getting them as much as I hate making them.
Yeah. So it's a perfect rapport builder in
Yeah.
what is that, 2 seconds to say? Two and a
Yep.
half, three? Yeah. And
Yep.
so you're going through this, you need to A/B test to then let yourself know what are these answers. Um, do you have any like standards on what you're doing for that data gathering? So as in like, do you always aim for statistically significant amount, or do you go, hey, we've made 100 calls this week. I know that's not representative from a pure mathematical perspective, but clearly, like this messaging is working or this ICP isn't working. Let's move fast. Like, how do you handle that?
So I'm not looking for statistically valid
Yeah.
research level data, right? If I can make 100 calls and I get two different sets of results, I'll go with the one that looks better.
Yeah.
And my clients, as a rule, they're not GM,
Mhm.
right? So when they set a policy, it's not set in stone forever. They can
Yeah.
change it, right? So you A/B test one week, you pick A. The next week you're testing A against C. You end up with C being better. You might in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, you might go back to B. You might go back to A and just try it again.
Mhm.
But the other thing is when you have multiple salespeople, you're going to have multiple versions of A that work better, right? Because I can't sound like other people. I grew up on the East Coast. I sold vacuum cleaners door to door. I'm
Yeah.
comfortable saying things that other people don't want to say,
Yeah.
right? So you've got to have you've got to have the principle behind the practice as much as the practice, and then you got to make sure that the people that are executing it are comfortable.
Yeah. Would you recommend that at all times, A/B test, or would you say that there is a certain threshold where you go, C, we landed on C, it's crushing it. We just pour the
I,
gas on more and just get more
I
of the phone calls out?
I think there are principles that you can always stick to, but I don't think there are words you can always stick to, right? Script based
Mhm.
selling doesn't work, as I tell everyone, which is ironic because that's a script.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the reality is, you've got to sound like you.
Right. So that would be like, A/B test to figure out like the phrases, the words, start getting that out for everybody, get everyone kind of aligned, but then continue to have flexibility in what you're saying, just as long as you're within the principled set of what the script is supposed to say, not just reading it every time.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
that makes sense. Would you think that that's also kind of tied to, no market is stagnant. So as you continue to have these conversations, I hate, for lack of a better word, the buzzword that's catching people's ears and causing them to listen might evolve over time. Like I imagine, AI is everywhere in terms of topics. So now conversations are changing. And so that would be another good reason to continuously be monitoring and A/B testing.
Yeah, it's no man goes through the same river twice because the river is not the same, and neither is the man, right? When you're making sales calls, you're not talking to the same people about the same things all the time. And now we're talking about interest rates and inflation and fuel costs and labor mismatch,
Hmm.
but we weren't talking about that before. Before it was, you know, different problems. 3 years ago, different problems. 5 years ago, different problems. The one thing that's consistent is that Inc. magazine, for like 18 years consecutively now, has said the number one problem for small business owners under $50 million is generating new revenue.
Yeah. But don't worry. Inbound is the rage. Prospecting is dead. Do not try to reach out to people and have conversations to see what's happening.
Yeah, eventually they'll call you,
Yeah.
right? You
Yeah.
just have to you have to hang on longer than they ignore you.
Yeah. Which is that's got to be a real comfort at night, laying in bed,
Yeah.
being like, maybe tomorrow I'll get that inbound that's gonna
Explain to your banker that they're ready to call you,
yeah.
right? Operators are standing by.
Yeah. Oh man.
So,
That's interesting. I think the thing that I've been noticing with like a lot of like the conversations is around AI. And I think the one that like everyone talks about like the productivity with it. And the thing that I keep like seeing through is like it's trust is what really is becoming the real topic underneath all of it. And the companies that are going to lean into that trust idea are going to start winning because productivity is no longer a competitive advantage. There's no moat there. Now, can I trust the person that I'm working with? And to do that, you're going to have to pick up the phone and start talking to people, not AI bots, to people to start establishing, can I trust you with my
yeah.
business? Can I trust you when I need something? Can I do that? And like, I think that really puts the emphasis back on, a cold call is just going to become more powerful as we go into this, and prospecting has become even less of an option I mean, less of an option, which is kind of a dumb thing to say at this point after this conversation, but like it's
Yeah,
just
I
going to
mean, the
exacerbate the
reality
problem.
is the reality is in today's world, you can be efficient or you can be effective,
Hmm.
right? Efficiency is all AI, effective is all person to person.
Yeah, definitely. Well, hey, we're at our upfront contract of the 30 minutes, so I really appreciate
Yeah.
it. I love this, straightforward approach to here are the facts. Here's how it gets done. Well, totally resonates with how I like to think about those types of things. Any final parting thoughts or words that you really want to drive home to summarize kind of your POV on this?
Hey, I tell everybody that I work with and everybody I talk to, you don't have to prospect, your competitors will.
Another great no nonsense answer. I love it. Awesome. Matt, I really appreciate the time today.
Yeah. Thanks.